Hello everyone, welcome back. This was requested. This is America's First Defeat, Northwest Frontier 1790 by Epic History TV. I was told they've got a different voice, so I don't know. We'll find out though. There's a thanks button on the channel. You can donate, you can subscribe, or give a thumbs up. All right, let's get into it.
1787.
Yes, it is a different voice.
11 years.
Wasn't a British guy, or am I thinking Kings and Generals? Kings and Generals has the same voice. I thought Epic History TV had a British guy as well. Maybe I'm wrong. Doesn't matter.
Years have passed since the United States of America declared their independence from the British Empire. But for the Americans, building a new nation is proving a formidable challenge. The infant republic is mired in debt, as well as political and economic turmoil. Veterans of the War of Independence, unpaid and desperate, mount an insurrection, Shays' Rebellion. The new federal government survives this crisis, but it is hamstrung by the Articles of Confederation, the country's first constitution, which severely limits its power. So, later that year, lawmakers gather in Philadelphia to draft a new U.S. Constitution with much stronger powers for the executive. Meanwhile, in America's newly proclaimed Northwest Territory, another crisis is brewing. In theory, this vast region has been ceded to the United States by the British following the Revolutionary War. It stretches from the Appalachian Mountains in the east to the Mississippi River in the west, and from the Great Lakes in the north to the Ohio River in the south. It was 300,000 square miles of untamed land, abundant in natural resources, and as far as the U.S. is concerned, ripe for expansion. The federal government plans to sell the land to settlers to pay off its enormous debts from the Revolutionary War, about $40 million in all. There is no shortage of demand. Thousands of settlers are eager to travel west, to build new farms and towns, and start new lives on the frontier. But there is a problem. Not only have thousands of settlers already crossed.
Sorry, I just noticed this. I was looking over here, and I just realized this man's chopping out a tree that's going to fall right on top of her. Nice.
But there is a problem. Not only have thousands of settlers already crossed illegally into the Northwest Territory, the Native American tribes who already live there will bitterly resist any invasion of their ancestral homeland.
Just also wanted to say, this is 26 minutes. It's going to be 2 videos. Sorry for the inconvenience.
The United States is stumbling into a war of conquest. A war for which it's badly unprepared, against an enemy it woefully underestimates. European settlers had been encroaching into Native American land for nearly 200 years. The violence was endemic. Some eastern tribes had been virtually annihilated. And the War of Independence, in which most Native Americans backed the British, saw intense fighting across the frontier. Warriors from tribes such as the Miami, Shawnee, and Lenape, also known as the Delaware, targeted U.S. settlements along the Ohio River, hoping to drive away the intruders. Local militia companies, part-time settler soldiers, responded with reprisal raids. One notorious incident occurred in 1782 at Genadenhutton. Here, Pennsylvania militiamen massacred 96 unresisting Lenape Christian converts, men, women, and children. Native American raids could be equally brutal. There were hundreds of victims on both sides, a cycle of violence that continued year after year. But now, the U.S. government is determined to impose orderly and safe settlement of the region, and crucially, to begin selling the land to settlers, corporations, and speculators. Since independence, the U.S. government has imposed a series of one-sided treaties on the Native Americans, claiming their land by right of conquest, and using bribes, threats, and violence to get its way. Congress now goes a step further, formally establishing the Northwest Territory with clear rules for its surveying and settlement. Under the leadership of Mohawk Chief Joseph Brant, the tribes have organized themselves into the Northwestern Confederacy. They reject and denounce the U.S. treaties and the new plans for settlement.
One thing that's always bothered me about what America did is all the treaties that it had and agreements to purchase the land from natives, and then they would grant them land. You know, like, okay, the natives can stay here. You gotta move out of this territory so we can have it, but you can move over there. And then they would, the natives would agree, everything would be worked out. Natives would leave. American colonists or Americans, early Americans, would flood in. And then they would expand right into the native land. And the natives are like, no, we gave you that land, we're here. And the Americans would then go to war with them. And it's like, you can't buy this land, move them over here, and then invade that land. Not invade, but, move into that land, and then pick fights with them. Put yourself in that situation. You wouldn't want that either. And that's the one thing that's always bothered me, because we always had agreements, and then we would just break those agreements. And we would say, manifest destiny, or I think manifest destiny was used more during Polk's thing, but it could have been used before then. But manifest destiny is that we're just gonna go all the way to the Pacific. We're gonna take what we want, blah blah blah. And it's just, that's the one thing that just drives me crazy about some of the early settlement, because it was never honest or truthful in our side. And then we demonize them, not so much now, because now we understand, but we would demonize them because, oh look, they're putting up a fight. Well, yeah, they gave you this, they moved here, and you just moved right on in. It's like, no. It just bothered me, as it does most people now, because you just see how insincere the whole thing was. And I've been to Vincennes, where Fort Sackville was. That was an awesome little town.
These tribes are determined to hold the line of U.S. settlement at the Ohio River, and will fight to do so. With violence flaring across the Northwest Territory, it will fall to America's first president, George Washington, to to find a solution to the crisis. George Washington, inaugurated as the first President of the United States in April 1789, faces many daunting challenges in his first term. High among them, the national debt and the faction.
Sorry. If this is Washington, is this Washington's, like, stunt double? What the hell's happening here? This is the guy who throws himself in front of Washington in case there's an assassin.
Term. High among them, the national debt and the factions forming within his own cabinet. Now, the escalating crisis in the Northwest Territory joins the list. Washington declares his wish to deal with Native Americans honorably and fairly. Yet, at the same time, he will allow nothing to stand in the way of the Republic's security or expansion. He's also being lobbied by a powerful association of land speculators, including his own Secretary of War, Henry Knox, who are demanding action. Their concern is that the violence in the Northwest Territory will harm their investments. In 1789, a final attempt is made to persuade the tribes to sign away their land, but negotiations at Fort Harmar are boycotted by the most powerful tribes. And so, in the summer of 1790, Washington authorizes military action. He orders the U.S. Army to launch a punitive expedition, a show of power to deter further attacks by Native Americans on U.S. settlers. It is an order for an invasion. Command of the expedition falls to Brevet Brigadier General Josiah Harmar, the nation's most senior Army officer. He is a distinguished Revolutionary War veteran who'd served with Washington at Valley Forge. But Harmar is also rumored to be a hard drinker and insists his troops follow the European model of war, relying on drill and close order formations which are completely unsuited to frontier warfare. The forces at his disposal are extremely limited. The victorious Continental Army, which had defeated the British, has long been disbanded. In its place, Congress has authorized the formation of a single infantry regiment, around 700 men. So the bulk of Harmar's expedition will be made up of militiamen from Kentucky and Pennsylvania. Few of these were experienced frontiersmen. Rather, they're often those who lack the wits or wealth to avoid militia service. Many are old or very young, with little training and no experience of the woods. A stark contrast to the enemy they'd soon come up against. General Harmar plans to march his force north from Fort Washington, along 150 miles of mostly forest trails, to destroy the Miami settlement at Key-Kayonke. He'll be supported by another mixed force of regulars and militia, 330 men commanded by Major Hamtramck, marching from Vincennes. On October 7, 1790, Harmar sets out on the United States' first major military operation since independence. After an 8-day march, his force reaches the Miami village at Key-Kayonke. only to find it torched and abandoned. The Miami have destroyed their own homes and apparently vanished. But Harmar's troops are being watched. Hundreds of warriors of the Northwest Confederacy have assembled to resist the U.S. attack. They are led by Miami War Chief Mishkinaqua, aka Little Turtle, Shawnee Chief Wayapir Senwa, aka Blue Jacket, and Bakangahelas of the Lenape. They and their warriors are determined, well-armed, and know every inch of their homeland. Meanwhile, 150 miles southwest, Hamtramck's militia have mutinied, refusing to advance further into the forests, and he has to turn back. General Harmar is on his own. His force spends 4 days burning villages in the area and destroying any food stores they can discover. Then, on October 19th, one of his companies is lured into an ambush. Attacked by more than 100 warriors, 150 militiamen turn and run. A single platoon of regulars stand their ground and are massacred. Around 30 U.S. soldiers are killed, with another 40 militia missing. 2 days later, Harmar decides his mission is complete and sets off for Fort Washington. Hours later, his scouts report that villagers are returning to Kikayonge. Hoping to finally engage and defeat the enemy, Harmar's troops make a dawn attack. They expect to have the element of surprise.
I'm going to cut this one a little short because I don't want to stop it in the middle of what could be a battle. So I'm going to end it here, and we'll come back with part 2. People sometimes ask me why I'll split a video, and I do it because the average length that people will watch of a video is about 11 minutes. So if I do a 26-minute video, it's 11 minutes on average that they watch. So I just look at it like that's 15 minutes that was wasted. So if I break it into another video and it's a 15-minute video and people watch 11 minutes, then it's more eyes on it. And I also don't always have time to just do long videos all the time, because I get requests for 2-hour videos. I just can't do that. I can't commit so much time to just a single video when I'm doing 10 videos a week. Just if I do a 2-hour video and then a 40-minute video and an hour video, that's a lot of time taken up on your spare time. So I just don't have that time. I don't have that luxury. If I was just doing videos on YouTube, it would be different. So I'm going to end it here. I'll be back for part 2. But until then, have a good day, have a good night.